Esperanto is an AI hardware company that initially had everything: world-class engineers, copious amounts of funding, and a chip that could run billion parameter models at under 25 watts. It was part of a roadmap to take on Nvidia and AMD. But in July 2025, they shut it all down. Not because the technology failed, but because the market didn't care and the people were lured away. Let's talk about it. So in the world of AI hardware, efficiency is supposed to be everything. That's where the AI hardware company Esperanto stakes its claim, a risc-v chip packing over 1,000 cores and custom vector extensions. The idea was that it could run large language models using a fraction of the power of today's GPU accelerators. The first chip had taped out, and they had promoted some impressive benchmark numbers, driving hardware with a scalable performance profile. Now, the second chip was already in development, but by mid-2025, that dream was over. Not because of a tech failure, but because the world around them shifted. Engineers were poached. Customers stopped optimizing for power. And when budgets kept growing, no one asked whether it could be done more efficiently. This isn't just a story of one company, it's a window into how fast AI priorities are changing. Now, the majority of this information comes from Sally Ward-Foxton over at E-Times. We'll put a link in the description of this video to their article, so don't forget to head over there and thank them for their reporting. So on July 4th, 2025, Esperanto Technologies began winding down its silicon operations. The closures were immediate. Both its European engineering hubs in Spain and Serbia were shut down, and approximately 90% of the team left in its Mountain View headquarters. What remained was a skeleton crew focused on maintaining support for existing customers and exploring potential licensing or acquisition of the company's IP. The thing is, Esperanto had working silicon. It had paying customers. As a late-stage startup, they had over 120 million in venture capital behind it. Their Series B in 2018 raised $58 million, and by 2021 they had secured an additional $61 million through a convertible note. In total, the company raised approximately $125 million over 3 rounds. That put them among some of the best-funded independent risc-v ventures of the last decade. The result of that funding was a core product called the ET-SoC1. It was a 1,000-core risc-v inference processor targeting transformer-class workloads. When built at scale, it was designed to run models up to 13 billion parameters at around 25 watts per chip, leveraging custom vector and tensor extensions. Their compiler toolchain and software were mature compared to most in the market. The second-generation chip, based on Samsung's 4nm node and built with chiplet scalability in mind, had already taped out. But the market moved faster than Esperanto could adapt. CEO Art Swift later explained that the company's expertise, one of extreme energy efficiency, had fallen out of fashion. Now that's worrying, given extreme energy efficiency is a value prop we see from lots of companies in this space. He explained to E-Times that when AI budgets expanded and customers chased performance at any cost, power envelopes stopped being a constraint. The hyperscaler mindset shifted from power optimization simply to maximizing performance. In that environment, efficiency didn't sell. Meanwhile, Esperanto's European engineering base became a prime target for competitors. Deep-pocketed firms lured away entire teams with compensation packages 2 to 4 times higher than what Esperanto could offer. And Serbia is quickly becoming a hub for semiconductor companies to host semiconductor teams. What began as a recruiting problem rapidly became existential. You can't ship hardware without the people who design, verify, and support it. And so, by mid-2025, Esperanto still had IP, a functioning product, and a second chip in flight. But without the capital to scale, the people to sustain it, or market aligned with its core thesis, the company simply ran out of runway, out of money. It didn't fail on technology, it failed on timing. And in this industry, time to market is everything. After showcasing that ET-SoC1 chip years ago, with detailed walkthroughs of the architecture at Hot Chips and a generally interesting approach to risc-v for AI, they more or less disappeared. There were no sustained outreach to analysts, little presence in public roadmaps, and no regular engagement with the wider ecosystem. I think that matters. The companies that stay in touch with people like me are the ones that stay in the conversation. They're the ones that analysts, buyers, and partners remember when it's time to evaluate new options. I've seen this again and again. The startups that hire a good media team and allow that team to maintain a steady drumbeat, even when they're not shipping product, tend to punch above their weight. Esperanto didn't. And even for me, they eventually faded from view. It's what matters when you let engineers only do engineering things. At some point, you have to say something public and get into the mind space to even get a seat at the table. Now, that loss of visibility for Esperanto only compounded their other problem, talent. While the company still had the IP and had that second chip in flight, it couldn't survive without the engineers who built and supported it. As mentioned, teams were poached by larger players offering far higher compensation. Once those groups were gone, there wasn't enough left to carry the roadmap forward. The company became effectively unbackable, not because of bad product, but because the people and presence behind it had evaporated. In a market this volatile, that's all it takes. A few quiet quarters, a few key departures, the slow erosion of relevance. And suddenly, even working hardware with a clear performance advantage becomes a hard sell. When I spoke to Sally about this, we were pretty much saying the same thing. Esperanto were hard to get hold of, so no wonder we didn't see this coming. So that's where it ends. Esperanto didn't crash, it faded. No scandal, no public meltdown, just a team that quietly got smaller, a roadmap that quietly stopped, and a company that quietly became irrelevant. And in some ways, that's the more honest version of how this industry works. Most companies don't fail because the tech doesn't work. They fail because the moment passed, and they weren't in the room when it came back around. The question then becomes, who is next?